Welcome back to another episode of the Road to Salt webinar series. So glad you guys are taking time out of your day to join us. I'm Luke McElroy. I'm part of the Salt community team here. And for those of you who have never been to a Road to Salt, welcome. Glad you're here. This is just a chance for us to take a little bit of time out of our day and try and dig deep into a topic to help us get better in our creative calling that God has given us so that we can serve our churches better. So I'm so glad you're here. And if you have been with us before, then you know how this works. We're going to have an incredible topic with an incredible speaker today. We're talking about how to create consistent broadcast lighting in your church so that it can look good on camera, so that it can actually engage your audience maybe a little bit more on a stream or something like that. So I'm super excited about that. But before we do that, I want to just remind us, we are 1 month away from SALT 2023. For those of you who may be new to SALT community and SALT conferences, this is our annual gathering that we do every single year, and it's here in Nashville, Tennessee. It is November 15th, 16th, and 17th. You can get all the details, speaker lineup, workshops, all that at salt2023.com. But I want to take a second and highlight for you some of our main platform speakers. You may not necessarily recognize their names, but I want you to hear a little bit of what makes them so incredible to have at SALT with us this year. So we start with Brad Montague. Brad and Rick Reckadell, one of the sort of earlier announcements we made, if you've been tracking with us through the SALT 2023 details. But Brad is the founder of Kid President. You may have seen that YouTube series. He also has a brand new show on Magnolia Network. So if he's friends of Chip and Joanna Gaines, he's obviously got to be friends of SALT 2023, right? So he'll be hanging out with us. We have Fred Odom, who is at Chick-fil-A, and he helps lead their culture at Chick-fil-A. And so all the things that you and I both love when we go to a Chick-fil-A drive-thru and the spirit of their team, I believe that is something that creatives have an impact to speak into. And so I think he's going to have incredible insights for us. Faith Yuri Cho, a new voice for us. She is an author, a speaker, and a pastor. And her newest book is all about this friendship that we cultivate with God and the closeness that hopefully we get as we draw closer to him. And I think she is going to have some incredible words of encouragement for us this year. Sojo, if you've been to SALT before, you know Sojo. He has been with us for many years now. He's our conference host. He's our shepherd. He's our steward. He has done a ton of work with Trilla Studios, the place that Marvel films are shot in Atlanta, Georgia, and Disney. He's also working with young adult leaders and people in children's and family ministries, but he has such a heart for creatives and the role that we play in the local church. So he's going to have an incredible thing to add as well. We got Rick Reckadell. If you haven't seen those announcements, he's a former vice president at DreamWorks Animations. I mean, he's been involved with films like Shrek and Prince of Egypt and Gladiator. And he's now stepping into a season of leading David C. Cook, the team that has put out much music and books for us in the church to benefit from. So I think he's going to have incredible insights. We just announced these last three, and I want to just take a second. So Tommy Prophet, he is an award-winning composer and producer. He's worked with artists like NF, Avril Lavigne, Chris Tomlin, and more. And he is not just only going to share some insights from stage, but he's going to actually help create an experience that is going to be unforgettable for us. Do not miss what Tommy has to offer at SALT this year. And then you got Mike Donahue, probably most known for his time that he was the lead voice man of 10th Avenue North, contemporary Christian band, but he has also been an author and a speaker, and he came in 2021. And so he is back by popular demand. I can guarantee that he is going to be a talk you will not want to miss. And then we just announced Don Hill. He most specifically leads up the choir room here in Nashville, an up-and-coming ministry that's all about music and choir and sort of the resurgence of gospel music. But his former life, he was the music director with CeCe Winans, Lauren Daigle, Drew Holcomb, The Neighbors. Hopefully some of these are bands and artists that you may recognize. And these are all voices that we're going to hear just in the main sessions. Of course, Don is also going to be speaking in a workshop as well, so you don't want to miss that. You can get all the details at salt2023.com. And for those of you specifically watching this webinar, I have something special for you at the very end of our episode today. So make sure that you stay tuned for that. You will not want to miss that. All right, without further ado, I want to jump into today's topic, consistent broadcast techniques. Our speaker is the broadcast lighting director at Church of the Highlands. His name is Griffin McCravy, and he is not only a resident expert on lighting and how to get a really good, even, balanced look for lighting in your church. He is also the person who is behind all the lighting direction at SALT 2023. He's been a part of our SALT core team for a couple of years now, and we're super excited that he is going to teach this. Sit back, take some notes. And because we pre-recorded this, because of the complexity of this topic, Griffin's going to be in the chat. So make sure you put your questions in the chat. Make sure you put out what's resonating with you. And then we're going to have Griffin with us live to take some of your questions and answer them. So make sure that you're engaging in the chat. Without further ado, here's Griffin McCravy.
Hey everybody, my name is Griffin McCravy. Thank you for joining me today for this SALT lighting webinar. Like I said, my name is Griffin McCravy. I am the broadcast lighting director at Church of the Highlands in Birmingham, Alabama. And today I want to just spend a few minutes with us all together talking about consistent broadcast lighting. Now, to give you a little bit of context, I am the LD at a multi-site church. So we have now two main broadcast locations, our primary and our secondary broadcast campuses. And these campuses each week will stream out a video message to our satellite campuses for the sermon, message, teaching portion of the service. Now our locations have volunteers at each location that are running the play for worship, for all of the local moments. And then we usually have some kind of news package or something like that where our campuses will then join in with our stream, and we'll all be one church at many locations for the message portion of our service. And then they'll take it back local at the end of the service, usually around the salvation prayer or something like that, where a local campus pastor will come up and take over. Now, that being said, that's on a really big scale. Today, what I want to talk about is just getting a consistent broadcast lighting or even just a consistent video look. I know ever since the year 2020, many of us more than ever before have been focused on what things look like on camera. And it can be a little bit of a nuance to get it just right, but with the help of a lighting team and a video team, especially that work well together, it's definitely something that is doable. So for me, there's really three main areas where I am looking at on video what my lighting is looking like. The first thing we want to go over is we want to talk about what do we want to have seen. Light is able to do this incredible thing of making seen what we want to be seen and making unseen what we don't want to see. It's very simple. So wherever the light is, that's where our eyes will go. Your eye will naturally be drawn to the brightest thing in a room. When's the last time you were in a service and you might have noticed that one house light was brighter than another, or you were at the movie theater and the color temperature of one of the house lights was different than all the others, and then it's like it's the only thing you can see. Luckily, we're able to take that kind of subconscious thing that happens in our brain and point attention to where we want people's eyes to be drawn. And so that's important for both in room, for your attendees who are sitting in your auditorium, what they're seeing, as well as for your camera. Your camera is going to work a very similar way. It's going to capture the brightest things. Now, there's lots of little things, little tools we can use that we're going to go into in just a minute that can help us make sure we're consistent, but that's kind of setting the groundwork for where we want to go. So we want to see where the light is. We also want to talk about color temperature and how we're actually painting the picture of what we're painting. Now, our eyes have all kinds of photoceptors and things like that that are helping our brain to decide what we're actually seeing when we're using our eyes, what colors are. Green is green, red is red, blue is blue. And so what we want to do is we want to help video and lighting equipment kind of come together and mesh together and create that same process that our brain is doing when our eyes are taking in images. We want to do that same thing for the camera. So that's really the second thing is color temp. So today we're going to talk about what we want to have seen. We are going to talk about color temp. And lastly, we're just going to talk about consistency. I know that sounds so simple, but it can really be the biggest difference between a good looking service and a great looking service. And that's just consistency. People love consistency. A lot of times I would argue that consistency is comfortability for someone in a service. When something unexpected happens, when something draws their attention away from what they think is going to happen, that can be jarring. That can almost kind of pull you out of the moment. And we are in a unique environment where we are creating lighting for a worship environment, for a worship service. So the focus should always be on the service, on the message, on the word, on the worship set. You know, the different parts of the service, there's small little variations of what we're wanting the focus to be on. on, but the overarching focus is on God, obviously, for this service. So those are kind of the three things I want to dive into today and take a look at. And that first one being where light is. So when you're designing a space, when you're designing a stage, or if you're redoing a space, or if you just want to kind of fine tune some things that you're doing already with your lighting system, the first thing you want to decide, usually with a video team, is what you want the light to look like. So for me, for my area, we have a fairly wide stage, which I'm going to put a photo up in just a second of. So we have a fairly wide stage, and we kind of have two main elements that happen on our stage. We have worship, which would be band and vocalists, and then we have a speaking portion, which usually our senior pastor, Pastor Chris, he actually uses a teaching television that's beside him that's touchscreen that he's able to manipulate ProPresenter slides. So that's kind of the way in my head I split up the two portions of what's happening on my stage. It's going to be a worship portion and a speaking portion. So first, for that worship portion, really what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting everyone who should be seen. So in worship, someone is singing. So I want the person who is singing to be well lit, both for people who are in the room and on camera, so that the camera can capture it and it can get out to other locations, our online platform, all of those sorts of things. While at the same time in the room, I don't want someone having to guess or try to figure out where something, or let's say a sound or a voice is coming from. So going way back in our history, we actually used to tighten down a vocal wash that was just straight on at the person. So we have up to 7 vocal spots. So we would actually hang 7 fixtures that are dead on to each of those vocal spots. And what that would achieve for us is just a very nice flat straight on lighting on that person. What that also allows us to do is actually kind of crop that down using shutters to where we're really only getting light on where the people are standing, where the 7 worship leaders are standing. Now that was kind of some of the early days of what we did for worship, part of the service lighting. What that accomplished for us was the people were well lit. The camera was able to see them. And then lastly, it was able to kind of cut down on some of that light being just thrown everywhere to help make the environment a little darker, a little more intimate for worship, so that there's not unneeded light and people are able to kind of worship freely. And you'll kind of see that with this first photo right here. So with this photo, you can kind of see those 7 fixtures straight onto the stage that are able to help create some consistent front light on our vocalists without having unneeded light in the room. Now, when you're looking at this image, this was a kind of bright moment of worship, so it's a little brighter than it would be, let's say, perhaps at the start of a song, but the gist is still there. Our worship leaders are well lit. You can see everyone on stage, and you can see those 7 fixtures kind of coming in straight on each vocalist. You'll also notice for consistent broadcast lighting, one thing that I like to do is also light my room, my crowd. So you might not have this in your environment. In our environment, we have a jib camera, a crane camera that will do shots of the stage, kind of do shots of band members to vocalists, but then we'll also do some shots of the crowd. Now, one of our personal things is we try not to show faces, really so that we are allowing people to still kind of be in an intimate worship moment and not feel like their business is being shown on the big screen, so to speak. But I still want that to be something visual for the camera. I don't want it to just be a black sea of people. And so you'll notice coming from the back of the auditorium and even kind of from that catwalk, it's kind of hard to tell, but you can see it through the haze a little bit. We do some crowd lighting. So this really is a balance of I'm wanting the people to have something colorful on them so that, again, we're not showing their business on the screen. They're not feeling like they're being spotlighted or singled out, but it just creates something that the camera is able to capture. So it changes from song to song. It even changes from color to color, kind of what intensity I'm running that at. But it's one of those things where I'll trust a number a little less, and a lot of times I'll actually just walk out in the seats during sound check, lift up my hands, and as a production guy, if I'm uncomfortable with how much light's on me, then probably a first-time attendee would be too. And so what I'll do is I'll really just kind of feel that out, service to service, song to song, of how bright we want that crowd light to be. But I will find a level that I try to keep for a whole day worth of services, just for that consistency on camera and from service to service. A lot of times we won't be sure until the end of the day what service we're going to archive. So trying to set up your lighting system where it can be as consistent as possible from service to service is also key, especially if you're having multiple services and it's expected that you're able to archive any one of them. That's just something that we try to think about to make sure that production is not the reason why, oh, well, we can't archive the second service because of a so-and-so thing that happened with the lighting or whatever. So we'll try to keep it as consistent as we can from service to service on any given Sunday. So that's kind of that first area of what we're using light for, is the consistency on what you want to see during worship. Now, the second part of that, like I talked about, was a consistency with speaking. So we kind of have two scenarios that play out at my particular location. The first scenario is our senior pastor, he uses a teaching television. This is actually really helpful for video and for lighting because I have a pretty good area of where I know he's going to be. So we have an area that we have marked out on stage where the TV goes each week so that it's in a consistent spot, and we can make sure it's not going to have any kind of reflections on it, any reflections of camera tally out in the room reflecting off the screen. And so we know based off where the TV is where our senior pastor is going to stand. It's kind of a center X that we have marked off. That is a center speaking spot, so to speak, and then it doubles as our center vocalist of those 7 vocalists like we just talked about. So when my senior pastor's on stage, there's a couple of things I want to try to do to him with light. The first is obviously make him seen, as we talked about for the vocalist. So for me, that's front on lighting. It's about a 30-degree angle away from him, and it's got a pretty wide, there's 10 total fixtures that are kind of doing this 30-degree in onto the stage. The reason for that is our stage, which I'm going to toss up another photo.